Her response was, Caitlin should be grateful she makes $16 million off the court, because without the platform that the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything.
One statement. That's all it took to blow the lid off the WNBA. Commissioner Cathy Engelbert allegedly told a star player that Caitlin Clark, the league's biggest draw, should be grateful for making millions off the court. But the scandal is far from over. So what really went down? Let's break it down. The statement that shook women's basketball. The relationship between WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert and rookie sensation Caitlin Clark had been under scrutiny for months. Questions swirled about whether the league truly valued its biggest star or whether old guard thinking still dominated the executive offices. But on September 30th, 2025, those whispers exploded into a full-blown crisis, and it didn't come from Clark herself. It came from one of the league's most respected veterans, speaking truth to power in a way no one had seen before. The Minnesota Lynx's season had just ended in heartbreak. But what happened next in that post-game press conference would send shockwaves through women's basketball that are still reverberating today. Napheesa Collier limped into the media room in a walking boot, visibly out of breath from the effort. The five-time All-Star and vice president of the WNBA Players Association didn't come to talk about the loss. She came with a prepared statement. 4 minutes of calculated, devastating criticism aimed directly at WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert.
So first of all, I'd like to congratulate the Mercury for advancing to the finals. And I want to be clear, this conversation is not about winning or losing. It's about something much bigger. The real threat to our league isn't money, it isn't ratings, or even missed calls, or even physical play. It's the lack of accountability from the league office.
This wasn't an emotional outburst. This was a measured indictment of leadership at the highest level of women's professional basketball. And what Collier said next would ignite a firestorm. To understand why this moment matters so much, we need to understand who Napheesa Collier is. She's not just another player with a grievance. She's a 5-time WNBA All-Star, a runner-up for league MVP multiple times, and one of the most respected voices in the sport. Her resume includes Olympic gold medals, WNBA championships, and a reputation for being measured and thoughtful, not someone who flies off the handle. But perhaps most importantly, Collier is the co-founder of Unrivaled, the new 3x3 basketball league that's offering players $100,000 to $250,000 base pay plus equity stakes, dramatically more than what most WNBA players earn during their off-season. This gives her a unique perspective on how a professional basketball league can and should operate. So when Collier speaks, people listen. And on September 30th, she had a lot to say.
Year after year, the only thing that remains consistent is the lack of accountability from our leaders. Sorry, I had to walk here in my boot. I'm kind of out of breath. The league has a buzzword that they've rolled out as talking points for the CBA as to why they can't pay the players what we're worth. That word is sustainability. But what's truly unsustainable is keeping a good product on the floor while allowing officials to lose control of games.
The context here is crucial. Just 3 days earlier, on September 27th, Collier had suffered a torn ankle ligament and shin muscle damage in Game 3 of the semifinals against the Phoenix Mercury. The injury occurred when she collided with Mercury player Alyssa Thomas, and no foul was called. Thomas stole the ball and scored while Collier limped off the court in tears, effectively ending her season and the Lynx's championship hopes. This wasn't the first controversial officiating decision in WNBA playoffs. The league had been dealing with mounting criticism about inconsistent calls, physical play spiraling out of control, and players getting injured on plays where fouls should have been called. Lynx coach Cheryl Reeve had been ejected and fined $15,000 for her post-game malpractice rant after that same game. But Collier's statement went far beyond just officiating. She was about to reveal details of private conversations with Commissioner Engelbert that would change the narrative entirely.
At Unrivaled this past February, I sat across from Cathy and asked how she planned to address the officiating issues in our league. Her response was, well, only the losers complain about the refs.
The room must have collectively gasped at that moment. The commissioner of a professional sports league allegedly dismissing player safety concerns with a casual only losers complain about the refs. But Collier wasn't done, not even close.
I also asked how she planned to fix the fact that players like Caitlin, Angel, and Paige, who are clearly driving massive revenue for the league, are making so little for their first 4 years. Her response was, Caitlin should be grateful she makes $16 million off the court, because without the platform that the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything.
And there it was, the quote that would become the lightning rod for everything wrong with the WNBA's relationship with its players, especially its biggest star. To understand why this statement is so explosive, we need to talk about Caitlin Clark. The 2024 #1 overall draft pick out of the University of Iowa didn't just enter the WNBA, she transformed it. Her rookie season saw WNBA viewership increase by 92% since 2020, reaching reaching a record 1.2 million average viewers. Attendance at Fever games jumped 136%. The league's revenue hit $300 million in 2025, up from $180 million in 2019. But here's the thing that makes Engelbert's alleged comments so particularly tone-deaf. Caitlin Clark was already worth millions before she ever set foot in a WNBA arena. While still in college, Clark signed a reported $28 million, 8-year deal with Nike in October 2022, making her one of the highest-paid collegiate athletes in the NIL era. She had partnerships with Hy-Vee, Topps, H&R Block, Gatorade, Goldman Sachs, and State Farm. Her NIL earnings exceeded $3 million during her college years. Clark could have stayed for a 5th year of college eligibility, potentially earning another $1 to $2 million in NIL deals. She could have gone overseas to play in European or Chinese leagues, where stars command $1 to $2 million annually. She had options. Instead, she chose the WNBA. And what did the league pay her? A rookie salary of $76,535. Let that sink in for a moment. A player who was already making millions, who had already broken NCAA scoring records, who had already drawn over 12 million viewers to a college championship game. She gets to the professional league and makes less than many entry-level corporate jobs. So when Commissioner Engelbert allegedly said that Clark should be grateful for her $16 million in off-court earnings because without the platform that the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything, it revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of the power dynamics that had shifted in women's basketball.
And in that same conversation, she told me players should be on their knees thanking their lucky stars for the media rights deal that I got them.
On their knees, thanking their lucky stars. For a commissioner to allegedly say that about the athletes who are literally the product, who risk their bodies every game, who draw the crowds and the TV deals, it was stunning. But was it true? Did Engelbert actually say these things? Hours after Collier's statement, the WNBA released a response from Commissioner Engelbert. It was measured, it was diplomatic, and notably it didn't explicitly deny the specific quotes.
Quote, I have the utmost respect for Napheesa Collier and for all the players in the WNBA. Together we have all worked tirelessly to transform this league. My focus remains on ensuring a bright future for the players in WNBA, including collaborating on how we continue to elevate the game. I am disheartened by how Napheesa characterized our conversations and league leadership, but even when our perspectives differ, my commitment to the players and to this work will not waver.
Disheartened by how Napheesa characterized our conversations. Not these quotes are false, not I never said these things, just that she was disheartened by the characterization. The response to Collier's statement was immediate and overwhelming. Players across the league rallied behind her. Aja Wilson posted on Instagram that she was disgusted by what she heard. Sophie Cunningham, Lexi Hull, and dozens of other players voiced their support. The WNBA Players Association stood firmly behind Collier. On social media, the statement went viral. The post from @UnderdogWNBA sharing Collier's words garnered 1.2 million views. Fans, media, members, and even casual observers began dissecting every word, every implication. ESPN's Malika Andrews urged people to listen to the full statement. Sports analyst Bomani Jones called it flawless execution. The narrative was set, the players versus the commissioner. Now, what we need to examine in the next part of this story is the broader context. What's really going on with WNBA officiating? What are the actual issues with player compensation? And why has this moment become such a flashpoint for the future of women's professional basketball? The system under scrutiny. Let's start with officiating, the issue that Collier directly tied to her own career-altering injury. The 2025 WNBA season averaged 18.7 fouls per game, up from 16.9 in 2023 and 15.4 in 2021. Playoff games averaged even higher at 20.3 fouls per game. But the problem isn't just the number of fouls being called, it's the fouls that aren't being called and the injuries that result. Collier's injury on September 27 wasn't an isolated incident. ESPN reported 12 significant playoff injuries in 2025, up from 7 in 2024. And when you look at some of these injuries, they're happening on plays where fouls arguably should have been called but weren't. Las Vegas Aces coach Becky Hammon, one of the most respected figures in basketball, spoke out ahead of the playoffs, calling the league's tolerance of physicality out of control and saying it would be unacceptable in the NBA. For speaking up, she was fined $1,000. This is the pattern Collier was highlighting. Players and coaches raised legitimate concerns about player safety and officiating consistency, and the league's response is to issue fines rather than address the underlying problem.
Fans see it every night. Coaches, both winning and losing, point it out every night in pregame and postgame media. Yet leadership just issues fines and looks the other way. They ignore the issues that everyone inside the game is begging to be fixed. That is negligence.
The league's official position, stated to ESPN on September 29th, is that their data shows no correlation between missed calls and injuries. They assess officials on their body of work throughout the season, not on individual mistakes. But to the players putting their bodies on the line, this feels like bureaucratic deflection. Now let's talk about the money, because that's where the rubber really meets the road. Caitlin Clark's 4-year rookie contract is worth a total of $338,056. In her first year, she made $76,535. That's not per game, that's for the entire season. Meanwhile, Clark's off-court endorsement earnings are estimated at $10 to $16 million annually. The disparity is staggering, but here's where it gets complicated. The WNBA has reportedly lost approximately $40 million annually, even as revenue has grown to $300 million in 2025. The league has been subsidized by the NBA for years, so when players say, "Pay us what you owe us," the league's response has been, "What exactly do we owe you when we're losing money?"
Because whenever we found out what the WNBA pays their players through Caitlin Clark, she's making like 70 grand or something. They're charging $70,000 for a suite at some of these games that Caitlin Clark is playing in. Now, I know that the league's been around for 20 years. I know that it's lost money for a very, very long time here.
This is where the business logic of professional sports gets murky. The current collective bargaining agreement, ratified in January 2020, gives players 20% of basketball-related income. That works out to approximately $60 million of the league's $300 million revenue going to players. For context, NBA players receive 50% of basketball-related income. NFL players get around 48%. Even accounting for the different revenue scales, the WNBA's 20% figure seems low, especially when you consider that the players are the product. But the league argues they can't pay more because they're not profitable. The players argue the league's financial structure is the problem, not the players' value. It's a chicken and egg situation that's been going on for years. Then came 2024, and Caitlin Clark changed everything. Clark's rookie season didn't just move the needle, it broke the measurement device. Attendance up 136%, TV ratings up 200%, revenue increased 21%. The Indiana Fever franchise sold for $250 million in 2025, a 50% increase in valuation. The league secured a $2.2 billion media rights deal over 11 years, tripling their previous agreement. And Clark's salary? Still $76,535, locked in for 4 years under the rookie scale. This is why Engelbert's alleged comment about Clark being grateful for the WNBA's platform is so explosive, because the evidence suggests it's actually the other way around. The WNBA should be grateful for Clark's platform.
Sure, when those will start being impacts and stuff, but definitely a super cool thing. But, I think it's been interesting. I think NIL, I think it's a really, really good thing and something that kids should have for a really long time. So it's been cool to see really what a lot of different Iowa athletes have been able to do. I think a lot of us have really given back to our community, which is really the best thing about it. And when it's used in the right way.
Clark built her brand in college, where the introduction of name, image, and likeness deals in 2021 allowed her to profit from her basketball excellence before entering the professional ranks. She became the all-time leading scorer in NCAA Division I basketball history with 3,951 points. She drew unprecedented viewership, over 12 million for her final college championship game. She didn't need the WNBA to become marketable. She was already there, and this represents a fundamental shift in power dynamics that the league's leadership may not have fully grasped. Now players have options. Unrivaled, the 3x3 league co-founded by Collier and Brianna Stewart is offering players $100,000 to $250,000 base pay plus equity, with stars potentially earning over $1 million. European leagues offer $200,000 to $1 million for top American players. The WNBA no longer has a monopoly on professional opportunities for elite women's basketball players. The collective bargaining agreement expires at the end of 2025, and negotiations are already contentious. Players want a larger share of revenue, moving from 20% toward the 50% the NBA offers, higher rookie salaries and a raised salary cap, full charter flights for all games, not just select trips, better healthcare and mental health support, changes to how fines are assessed for speaking out about officiating the league's position, articulated through Engelbert's leadership, has been focused on sustainability. The word Collier specifically called out in her statement as a buzzword used to justify keeping player salaries low.
That's a mentality driving our league from the top. We go to battle every day to protect a shield that doesn't value us. The league believes it succeeds despite its players, not because of them.
This cuts to the core of the disconnect. Do the players make the league, or does the league make the players? For decades, the answer in the WNBA was arguably the latter. The league provided the platform, the structure, the pathway to professional basketball for women. Players were expected to be grateful for the opportunity to play professionally at all. But the NIL era, combined with the emergence of transcendent stars like Clark, has flipped the script. Now players can build massive personal brands independent of professional leagues. They can monetize their talent through endorsements, social media, and alternative basketball opportunities. The WNBA is no longer the only game in town. This is the context that makes Engelbert's alleged grateful comment so damaging, because it suggests a mindset still stuck in the old paradigm, where players should feel lucky to be in the WNBA rather than the league feeling lucky to have them. But is that fair to Engelbert? Let's look at her tenure more objectively. Cathy Engelbert became WNBA commissioner in May 2019, coming from a career as CEO of Deloitte, one of the world's largest accounting and consulting firms. She had no prior sports management experience, but she brought corporate expertise and business acumen. Under her leadership, the league secured the $2.2 billion media rights deal. Revenue has grown from approximately $180 million to $300 million. The league expanded from 12 to 14 teams with more expansion planned. Average player salaries have increased from around $75,000 to over $130,000. The league navigated COVID-19 and maintained operations. These are not insignificant achievements. The WNBA is objectively in a better financial position than when Engelbert took over, but there's a difference between financial management and people management, and this is where the criticism gains traction.
If you are a leader of an organization, how are you not close with the stars of the organization? And the dilemma right now in the WNBA is that the star players, the Asias, the Stewies, the Sabrinas, the Caitlin Clarks, they don't have a good enough relationship with the leader. The Nafisas, they don't have a good enough relationship with Cathy Engelbert.
Multiple reports, including from Sports Business Journal, have described Engelbert as not a relationship builder and suggested internal pressure for her to potentially exit after the current CBA negotiations. The concern is that while she may excel at securing media deals and managing the league's business side, she's failed to connect with the players who are the league's most valuable asset.
I have the privilege of watching my husband run a league where he has to balance 100 different things at once. I won't pretend the job is easy, but even with all of that on his plate, he always takes the time to reach out to players when he sees an injury, whether it's unrivaled or even during the WNBA season. That is what leadership looks like. It's the human element.
Collier's husband, Alex Basil, is president of Unrivaled, and her comparison here is pointed. Even while running a startup league, he finds time for the human element of leadership. Why couldn't the WNBA commissioner do the same?
This year alone, I've gotten calls, texts, and well wishes from so many players across the league. Those moments remind me that sometimes there are things bigger than the results than this game we play. But do you know who I haven't heard from? Cathy. Not one call, not one text. Instead, the only outreach has come from her number 2 telling my agent that she doesn't believe physical play is contributing to injuries.
Whether or not Engelbert said the specific quotes Collier attributed to her, there's clearly a massive communication gap between the league's leadership and its stars. And in a player-driven league, which basketball fundamentally is, that's a critical failure. This brings us to the crucial question: what happens next? The future at stake. We're at an inflection point in women's professional basketball. The decisions made in the coming months in CBA negotiations and potential leadership changes in how the league addresses officiating and player compensation will determine whether the WNBA capitalizes on its unprecedented momentum or squanders it. Let's start with the immediate consequence. What happens to Cathy Engelbert?
Cathy Engelbert, the commissioner of the league. Doggy, Peter, Monica, let me say for the record, you should resign. You need to resign, period.
That's Stephen A. Smith on ESPN's First Take, calling for Engelbert's resignation following Collier's statement. He wasn't alone. Across sports media, the consensus was that Engelbert's tepid response to such specific and damaging allegations was itself damaging to her credibility.
It was a weak-ass statement. Could you imagine somebody directing comments and criticisms at you, taking conversations they've had with you directly and telling the world what you said? And did you see that statement Commissioner Engelbert gave? She basically provided no defense of herself.
Smith raises a valid point. In professional sports, we're used to commissioners being combative defenders of their own authority. David Stern, Adam Silver, Roger Goodell, these are people who, when challenged, respond forcefully. Engelbert's measured diplomatic response looked weak by comparison, but there's another perspective to consider. One panelist on First Take pushed back.
The The only thing I gotta check you on, doggy, because you're right, CBAs can be contentious, and commissioners have an agenda and players have an agenda. But I do have to check you, because she started that statement and said, congratulations to the Phoenix Mercury. I completely disagree that this statement was in any way connected to the fact that they lost.
This is important. Collier explicitly said this wasn't about winning or losing. She congratulated the Mercury at the start of her statement. This wasn't a case of a player lashing out in frustration after a tough loss. It was a calculated decision to use her platform to address systemic issues. Whether Engelbert survives as commissioner likely depends on two things: the CBA negotiations and the NBA's perspective. The WNBA is owned and subsidized by the NBA. If NBA ownership and leadership lose confidence in Engelbert's ability to navigate this contentious period and maintain positive relationships with players, she could be out regardless of her business achievements. Sports Business Journal has reported sources suggesting she may exit after CBA negotiations. Let's zoom out from the commissioner drama to the bigger picture. What's really at stake here? The WNBA is experiencing unprecedented growth, driven largely by a new generation of stars. Caitlin Clark is the most visible, but there's also Angel Reese, Aja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, and others. These players have built personal brands through social media, NIL deals, and authentic connection with fans in ways previous generations couldn't. The league reached 1.2 million average viewers in 2025, up 92% from just a few years ago. The media rights deal, worth $2.2 billion over 11 years, represents approximately $200 million per year, a massive increase from previous deals. Corporate sponsors are investing heavily. Franchise valuations are soaring. This is the moment when the WNBA could finally become sustainably profitable, could finally stand on its own 2 feet financially, could finally pay its players salaries commensurate with their value and the revenue they generate. But it requires getting the next phase right, and there are several ways this could go wrong. Scenario 1, the lockout. If CBA negotiations break down, the WNBA could face its first work stoppage. Players have leverage they've never had before: alternative leagues, massive endorsement deals, public support. A lockout could delay or cancel the 2026 season, causing irreparable damage to the league's momentum just as it's reaching new heights. The irony would be devastating. Finally, after 25 plus years of struggle, the WNBA has mainstream attention and growing revenue, and they blow it because they couldn't agree on how to split the money. Scenario 2, talent exodus. What if top players decide the WNBA isn't worth it? Unrivaled is offering comparable or better pay for fewer games. Overseas leagues offer lucrative options. Players could choose to build their brands through social media, play in alternative leagues, and skip the WNBA entirely. Imagine if Caitlin Clark, after her rookie contract expires in 2027, decides not to re-sign. Imagine if she says, I can make more money, play fewer games, have more control over my career, and not deal with these issues by playing in Unrivaled and overseas. That would be catastrophic for the WNBA. That might be hyperbolic, but it's not entirely wrong. Clark has that level of influence and marketability, and the WNBA treating her as if she should be grateful for the opportunity to play there, rather than recognizing that the relationship is mutually beneficial. That's a dangerous miscalculation. Scenario 3, the successful transformation. But there's also a positive scenario. The CBA negotiations result in meaningful improvement: higher salaries, better working conditions, reformed officiating processes, and most importantly, a partnership approach between league leadership and players. Engelbert either adapts her leadership style to prioritize player relationships or is replaced by someone who can blend business acumen with people skills. The league continues its growth trajectory, becomes sustainably profitable, and serves as a model for how women's professional sports can thrive. The opportunity is there. Viewership is at all-time highs. Corporate sponsors are investing. Young girls across the country are picking up basketballs because they see players who look like them succeeding at the highest level. The cultural moment is now, but cultural moments are fleeting. The WNBA has maybe a 2-3 year window to capitalize on this surge before the next thing captures public attention. They cannot afford to waste it on labor disputes, leadership dysfunction, and players feeling undervalued and disrespected. This brings us back to Nafisa Collier's statement and why it matters so much.
We have the best players in the world. We have the best fans in the world. But right now, we have the worst leadership in the world. If I didn't know exactly what the job entailed, maybe I wouldn't feel this way. But unfortunately for them, I do. We serve a league that has shown they think championship coaches and Hall of Fame players are dispensable, and that's fine.
Collier knows what good leadership looks like because she's living it with Unrivaled. She knows how a league can operate when it prioritizes player welfare, when it sees players as partners rather than employees to be managed, when it understands that in a player-driven sport, keeping your stars happy is not just good ethics, it's good business. The WNBA has a choice. It can continue operating under an old paradigm where players should feel lucky to be there, or it can recognize that the power dynamic has fundamentally shifted shifted, that the players, especially stars like Clark, have options, and that the league's success depends on embracing this new reality rather than resisting it. This is about more than just one league or one sport. This is part of a broader movement in women's sports where athletes are refusing to accept second-class treatment. We saw it in soccer with pay equity fights. We saw it in college basketball during the 2021 NCAA tournament when players exposed disparities between men's and women's facilities. We're seeing it now in the WNBA. The question is whether the leadership is ready to evolve. One thing is certain, the players are united. Collier's statement wasn't a lone wolf complaint. Aja Wilson, Sophie Cunningham, Lexi Hull, and dozens of other players immediately voiced support. The WNBA Players Association released statements backing Collier. This is collective action, not individual grievance. And that unity gives them power. In labor negotiations, solidarity is everything. If the players stand together, they can force meaningful change. The league cannot operate without them. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.